Aloha and welcome back to the Hana Packers Edition podcast, the podcast where two dudes from halfway around the world talk everything green and gold. I'm Mike, and that's Iowa Joe. Joe, Packers are 8-8, in control of their destiny. Thank you, Dad, and your Pittsburgh Steelers. And are a win over the Chicago Bears next week in Week 18 from making the playoffs in Jordan Love's first season. Joe, how excited does this game have you tonight?
Well, just for it to be a victory is great, but I do have to say I hate having to have back-to-back seasons where it all comes down to a division rival deciding whether or not you make the playoffs or not. So hopefully it ends up a little bit different than last year's, but I've said all along that, and I know people hate when I say this, but I don't care about the playoffs. This was always going to be a trial and error type year because it's a young team. It's a very young team with a shitty ass defensive coordinator who, is probably going to be gone anyway. So it was always going to be a trial and error season. It was always going to be playing with house money. So and I said it earlier in the season where it was either going to be like a 3-10 team or it was going to be, a 10-6, 11-5 type team. Well, they're starting to look a little bit more like the 10-6 than they are the 3-13. But it's always on house money right now. So if they get in the playoffs, great. If they don't, I don't care. I'm just along for the ride for this season. But it looks better for next year.
No, absolutely. And that's the big way to look at it. Especially with, Green Bay getting this win on the last seconds of 2023. So this is the bid adieu to the 2023 year, and the Packers look ahead to 2024. But like you said, Joe, that's the big thing for this whole season. Obviously making the playoffs would be nice. Like I said, I totally agree with you that the big thing for this season was to evaluate Jordan Love and see where he's at as a player. Are you seeing him hit landmarks in terms of his progression as a starting quarterback? Is he improving his play? Is he making adjustments as the league makes adjustments to him? We've seen that. We've seen him do it, 2 out of the 3 teams that he has to play twice in the same season. We've seen him do it this year. That's a big one to me, just because everyone's got the same film on you. Everyone's kind of got the same, coaching tape and tips and all your little reads and preferences and stuff like that. So it's good to see Love go and have some of his better games on the season against teams that are looking at him as for a second time. And, for both the Lions and the Vikings, both of them in their home stadium. These were both big road games for the Packers, and both of them are venues that have given the Packers trouble within, not just over the course of time, but really in the last 10 years, the Packers have struggled to win in both of these venues, both Ford Field and the Bird Killer. So it's good to see Love get his first win, get a win in his first trip here as a starting quarterback. But like I've also said, in the recent weeks, and obviously, it's been disappointing the 2 weeks before. They almost got snake bit last week because of one individual who hopefully won't be around for too much of 2024. But I do like seeing how Love and this team react with expectations put on them, because added expectations, because like you said, the team knows where they're at. They've got their new starting quarterback. They got to try see what the new flashy gadget can do and stuff. And it's worked out. I wouldn't say that it's a finished product. You, as a Packer fan, you should hope it's not a finished product with Jordan Love, but a lot of the goods that you've been told about by LaFleur, Gutekunst, Murphy, even though he's more talking from like a CEO level look, not like he's in the building, but not the same kind of in the building as those two, and and Tom Clements and stuff like that. But it's good to see the results on the field match up with what we've been sold at, as fans of the team over the last 12 months. So that's really good to see a return on investment there. And honestly, this is the kind of stuff where you want to see what Love is made of. And I mean, we'll get into it as we go through the show today, but I think we're gonna get more of the same where the dude is just unflappable, and that's what obviously you need
He
the tangibles and stuff, but yeah, it's I'm just excited to see what this team's gonna do going ahead.
he has his moments though. Like there were a couple of times today where he did let the pressure get to him and he kind of overflung things, or I still think he gets way too excited when he sees somebody open deep and he overshoots the ball more than anything. So I do think that that is something that needs to continue to be worked on. But yeah, he has been getting better at it. And just I can't believe some of the throws he was making tonight because it was just like I don't want to put the same connotations on this game as the one that I'm about ready to reference, but it was similar in play style to the Brett Favre after his dad passed away game because it was just like he was throwing up prayers and everything was coming to fruition. It just because even Collinsworth and Tarico were pointing it out on the broadcast where, he's not even touching the ground and he's flipping the ball, 30 yards down the field or it just yeah. So like I said, I don't want to share the same connotations where oh yeah, he just lost somebody so he's playing, the game of his life. No, it seemed like he could do no wrong with the throws he was making. And no matter how it looked, whether he was almost on his back or, he was 2 foot in the air jumping or whatever, it just seemed like it was getting placed where it needed to be placed, except for that one deep pass to, was it Melton?
Yeah.
Yeah, that he overshot Melton. But I, yeah, I mean, just looking at the stats, he's done well. He's cut the interceptions down pretty well. I'm happy with the result of his one quote unquote rushing touchdown because I think that could have went either way in a case where I think they could have also maybe called it a fumble because it like started jarring loose as it hit the uh broke the plane. But hey, whatever. Let them count it. It's fine. They looked it over. Um but I'd like to see the passing yards up just a touch. It'd be nice to start getting some regular 300-yard games out of them, but I know that's not the LaFleur type system. So, and obviously it's hard to do when you don't have all your weapons out there. You don't have Wicks, you don't have Watson. They lost Jaden Reed and oh and the running backs, even Dylan got banged up there for a minute. So he, but that's one thing. And I know you have down here on our show notes that, LaFleur called a great game, but it got really frustrating that Aaron Jones would like break one for 20 yards and then he was immediately pulled and you'd see Dylan for the next 4 or 5 plays. And it's like, okay, I understand giving him a break, but you got the hot hand here. If he thinks he can do it, let him do it. We talked about this, and trust me, AJ Dillon's my guy, or not AJ Dillon. Aaron Jones is my guy, but like I said on our preview show, just run him till you can't run him anymore. Don't do this whole okay, we're going to give you one. Oh yeah, you busted it for 20 yards. Well, sit down for another five, 5 plays. Let him do it because he's obviously got the hot hand at that moment. That first one that he did where he broke for like 20, 25 yards, they immediately pulled him, put AJ Dillon in, and AJ Dillon maybe got 3 yards for the next 2 plays. Which one would you rather have? Aaron Jones busting it for another wide open gain or, 2, 3 yards from AJ Dillon?
Yeah, I won't get too much into the running back rotation because they have their system. Um
Yeah,
and
but you get what I'm saying though, where,
yeah, I do. I
stick
do.
stick with the hot
It's
hand more
yeah.
than
And I know that Jones did get dinged up a little bit at certain points in the game, but yeah, I do think that is just one of those. they're kind of stuck with what they've got at running back for now, and it doesn't help that Dylan is has the broken thumb and stuff, but they're gonna make do with what they have and all. And I
Well, they got Kenyon Drake on the friggin' practice squad.
yeah,
They could
no.
have cut Patrick Taylor and easily brought, Kenyon Drake up. I'm not saying Kenyon Drake's gonna be this world breaker by any means, but he's got to be better than Jag Taylor. I I mean,
Yeah.
I
I
don't
don't have
get it.
much to say around about that, so I'm gonna just leave that one there. But let's talk about the positive stuff. Let's talk about our boy Jordan Love. We're bringing in the new year out at this point in time. I'm 3 hours out in California right now, um, but
I got about an hour
Jordan,
left.
yeah, Jordan Love closing out his 2023 with another great primetime performance. They still got to figure out the Monday night stuff, but they won't have to worry about that until the 2024 season. But at least we know now that he can play on Sunday night football and play well. But just another great game from Love. Ends up at what is that? That's like 74% passing on the day, I think it was. 70, just under 73. Like you said, over 250, but not the 300 that people are hunting for. But I mean, hard to bang on a guy for averaging just about 7.75 yards per attempt, well over 10 yards per completion, and the 3 touchdowns on the night. And most importantly, like we said, clean football, no interceptions, and no sacks either. And like you kind of talked about where there are several instances where it seemed like he was just kind of flipping them up there into the lighting and letting it come down to open receivers. That is the thing when you face a cover zero team, is that if you identify it properly and your O-line picks it up well, you're gonna have opportunities to kind of throw arm pumps up there. Obviously, you're not just winging it with no, doing the full on, hey, someone's down there, just F it kind of thing. But
Well,
there
and that's
is
what
an
it seemed like
element,
he was doing, was just like,
right?
"Hey, there's somebody there somewhere, and they're getting in my face, so here it goes."
Yeah, and there's a little. It's always where one of those where if it doesn't work, yeah, it was a F it. So and so is down there, somewhere down there. But when it works, that's really what you're doing is you leverage your routes to take advantage of that kind of no safety man coverage, so that you've got a free runner who's whether he's running across the field or running into a void but created by two other receivers, you have open space, and it's just a matter of getting the ball out there. And because it's man with a blitz, the DB is usually in some kind of trail coverage. So especially with a guy like Melton or Reed, who are plus plus athletes, those are guys that are generally going to dust their DB at some point in the route or have the opportunity to. And so you can kind of just chuck it up there to them and expect them to run under it. And we saw it not work. The fourth down play to Melton, that was one where I think Love could have been a little better on that throw, but also Melton's got to make that catch. That's a gimme in the NFL. And you saw other instances where it absolutely worked to perfection and it made big plays for the Packers. So I think it was a great, like I said, that's sort of the development within the development you're hoping to see from Love. You see him have one of his worst games of the season in week 8 in Lambeau against these same Vikings. And then he comes back today in a do or die. This is a win or go home game for the season. And he comes out and throws again one of his better games of the 2023 NFL season and puts his team on the doorstep of a playoff spot in his first year as a starter. So um, it I can't diminish what he's done. And yeah, I know I wish he had a few more yards, but he's only what is he, like a $150 short of 4,000 on the season, and that's without the 17th game. So
Oh, I know, and it's just
yeah.
nitpicking for me, but I
Oh
just,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you want to see the continued growth, and what is it? He's only had one or two 300-yard games this
Yeah.
season,
And the thing is,
and
though, is they had 470 as a team. So, I mean, and obviously, I know like 60 or whatever of them came on the what's his face, the Clifford drive. But so you still had over 400 yards of offense with Love as the quarterback. And, and obviously part of that too is the second half of the game where they go on some drives where all they're trying to do is chew up some clock, especially when you reach the point, you come out of halftime and you find out that Jaden Reed is not coming back in the game. And so all you're really trying to do is just bleed the clock at that point. And so, they stop Minnesota on downs and they go on a 90-yard drive that eats up 8 minutes of clock. So, yeah, they had 3 drives in the second half. So those are, 13 plays, 90 yards for 8 minutes, 13 plays, 57 yards, just under 8 minutes for their field goal, and then end the game at, with that's Clifford in for 58 yards. So, there's only 2 drives that Love is a part of in the second half. So, um, I totally get what you're saying. It's nice to have the pretty counting numbers, but honestly, I can't be too upset if you're going to get a balanced offense with, like you said, Aaron Jones goes over 120 in 2 weeks in a row, and not just goes over 120, but does it at 6 yards a clip. So, just another efficient day on the ground for Jones. And like I said, that's with him getting a little dinged up at one point in the game, but he came right back in the next drive. So, I'm with you where you want to, like we kind of talked about in the preview show, where it's like, you've got Jones, you got 2 games to make it to the playoffs. Um, and then especially today with Seattle losing, which puts you in the driver's seat for your playoff live. It's like, just use all them bullets, or you can take them home, but they're no good for the rest of the season if you don't use them at the right spots. But I also think that's sort of the roulette game that LaFleur and the Packers are playing with Jones. Is it's like they want to ride him as much as they can, but he also does get dinged up a little bit every now and then. So I know I would love to see him in for whole drives, and or like get the oxygen mask on the sideline and come back in after a couple plays and stuff. But they have their rotation, and and I don't know what Jones's input is. He might be telling him, "Hey, I need more time," kind of thing and stuff. So I can't speak to that too much, but it's just really good to see this Aaron Jones back for the Packers, because if they're gonna, again, make the playoffs this season and make any kind of noise once they get to the playoffs, this is the Aaron Jones they need. Especially if AJ's thumb isn't going to be much better in the coming weeks. So absolutely huge to have him back healthy. And one of the few good things Collinsworth kind of said during the broadcast is the only thing we haven't really seen is Jones be part of the passing game recently. But honestly, I'm kind of okay with that, because unless they're going to use him like they did in week 1, where he's getting split out and thrown like actual routes and not just thrown a gazillion dumb screens, I'm okay with him not being in the passing game. So it is a matter of how he's going to be used. But just a great game from
And with the little
Jones. And
bit
yeah,
that they've used him in, he hasn't shown much. I mean, he's had a lot of drops this year, so that's the point I think Collinsworth was more making, that it's not that they're not trying to use him. It just, when they have, he's been uncharacteristically not good when it comes to it. But, to your point, we haven't really needed him in the pass game as much. I mean, we've got all these young guys out there. I've got it wrote down here on the show notes: Melton, Melton, and more Melton. We were both pretty sure that he's the first 100-yard receiver for the Packers for this season. He
yep.
came out of nowhere. He got his first career catch 2 weeks ago, or was it
No, it might have
last
been
week?
last week. It is last week. Yeah, because I think against I forget, against oh no, maybe it was against, let me see. Great radio right now. Let me see what he did against Tampa, but I thought today was his first one. Wait, I'm doing this all wrong. I'm doing this
Yeah,
all
I'm not
wrong.
sure. I just know that it's been relatively within the last couple of weeks that he's really turned.
Yeah, he had one catch against Tampa, but
Yeah,
um
so he had
the,
his first career catch a couple weeks ago. He had his first career touchdown tonight. His first career 100-yard game tonight. First 100-yard receiver for the season for the Packers. And this guy, has really came out of nowhere. And we all knew when the Packers picked him up that he was an athletic freak. He had the speed, he had, the mobility, all that stuff. He just was a raw prospect. Well, between him and Heath really kind of stepping up as the UDFAs, it's hard to get other people involved in the passing game when you have all these other targets to, craft. Ben Sims was looking pretty good tonight. Uh, uh, uh,
Jaden
Reed,
Reed obviously had a big game before going out with injury. So
yeah, Romeo. There's one thing that I really want to understand with Romeo. I He's always got to roll over when he tries to go for the catch. Is that something they try to instill in a receiver instead of just making the catch? He like always has to do some kind of rollover after the ball comes in.
I think when he's
Obviously I
going
was
for
never a wide receiver.
I think it goes to it's when he thinks he's going to the ground for a catch, because obviously he doesn't do it when he's catching in his stride and stuff, but I think it all goes back to that almost touchdown at the end of regulation against the Patriots last year, where he catches it flat, and he catches it and it's kind of between his hands like this, and when he hits the ground, the ball like it kind of squirts out from between his hands. And so you saw him start to like alligator roll with the catch when he had that kind of wild touchdown catch against the Bills last year on Sunday Night Football, where he's like looks over both his shoulders, and then he finally sees the ball, and then he kind of has to pirouette in midair to snag it and stuff. And so you've seen him where he's kind of like it's to keep the ball off the ground and protect it after the catch. And so it does make it I know what you're getting at, where it makes it look like it's adding a degree of difficulty to it, but in all seriousness, it actually is. I don't want to say it's making it easier, but it is a fluid motion, because he's trying to it's how he's trying to cradle it, so that he makes sure that he cradles the ball like up off the ground instead of into the
Right,
ground
and I
kind of
get the
thing. Yeah.
reason why he's
Yeah.
doing it, but I think it does add that extra degree in there because it seems like it's cost him more than it's helped him lately. Like a couple of them today or tonight, I think
He
he
really
could have
only had
had
the
the
one
catch.
he really only had the one vertical where he kind of was reaching around the cornerback. And yeah, I need him to, I tweeted it, I need that catch. The one on the first third down, that's a bad throw, and he almost made an insane catch. But that one, he's got to like pop and stop and reach behind him and stuff. And so I'm honestly kind of impressed he got his hand on it, because he's expecting that on the sideline. It's a deep out, and he's expecting that ball, basically a yard outside of where he's at, so that it's high and outside. He can grab it, get his feet down. Maybe if the throw's on time enough, he could turn up the sideline and get some extra yards. But sorry, um, it's mostly that one vertical route that he had today, where it would just it's one of those where it's like, I know that they're teaching you up on a bunch of these things, but just make the grab, like whatever, like
Yeah.
don't think too much and stuff. So
It
the
reminds me of that one receiver, uh God, I'm gonna blank on his name, but every time you turned around, he was trying to jump to make the catch. It's like you don't have to jump to make the catch, just make the damn catch. And it kind of reminds me of that with Dobbs, where you don't have to do the alligator roll. Just make sure you're securing the catch before you do the alligator roll. Because there was a couple of times, not just like tonight, but in the in other games where he didn't secure the catch and went into the alligator roll, and then that caused him to kind of miss the catch. And it just, I think it does add that extra degree in there that on some things, yeah, it's great. Hey, secure the catch, do whatever you got to do. But it almost cost us, was it last week when he did that and he landed on his ass? And that's what they said he was down before he rolled out of bounds and the ball went out, or he lost control.
Yeah, so I like I said, we'll see. It's mostly worked for him this season, but yeah, it is one where, like you said, if he's gonna keep pace with Wicks, Reed, he's gonna have to, continue to refine his game. But I've said it all season. Love trusts Dobbs a lot, and you see it in the the situations and opportunities that Love gives him, the kind of opportunities where it's like do or die third down plays, the fourth down against Kansas City, stuff like that. So, and they
Well,
do
and
scheme up some looks for him too. So, yeah.
well, it makes sense that he trusts Dobbs and he trusts Watson too when Watson's out on the field,
Yeah.
because who was he throwing to all of last year on the scout
Yep.
team?
Yep. Exactly.
So it makes sense that he's more comfortable with him. But that's the one good thing about having a young quarterback is he doesn't use him as a crutch.
Yeah.
He's going to throw to
Exactly.
whoever he can get it to. Whereas when quarterbacks start tending to get older, kind of Brett Favre-ish, kind of Aaron Rodgers-ish, where they just start wanting to target one receiver, one receiver. So it's good to see that, okay, well, Dobbs isn't open. He's not going to force it to him, but he's got Reed open over, in a slant, or he's got a Heath in a comeback or whatever. He's not trying to force it. He's going to go to wherever he can, is open for him. So that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
another, like you said, like we've been talking about the last few weeks, another pretty decent spread of targets. I'm sure Jaden would have had a few more if he didn't get hurt before
Definitely.
halftime. But I mean, nobody had double digits. I think Bo, and this is one where I don't think he was actively trying to make Bo the story of the game or anything like that. But I think it's the whole like, okay, they're taking away Dobbs. They tried and failed to take away Jaden Reed. Obviously kind of force fed Tucker a little bit, but Tucker was the guy that was left open underneath their coverage a bunch of times.
Well,
And
let's
then,
face it, if you're gonna force feed anybody, it's gonna be Tucker Craft
yeah,
because
and we're
he's
getting
gonna
to
fight
him.
for every
Yeah,
yard.
he's we didn't see the hurdle today, so there was some learning. He broke out a nasty stiff arm a couple times tonight. And
And he
I
lowered
think,
that shoulder.
yeah, so, and honestly, it was fine that, they were using him like that because I think the game plan was to get Reed up the seams to kind of use the middle of the field, and we saw Melton do that a little bit as well. So, just a great use of all the weapons. And Tucker is doing it on both phases of the offense. He's maximizing his opportunities as a receiver, but we're also seeing him still just absolutely lay the lumber as a run blocker. He had some, and he's doing it in all kinds, whether he's the inline tight end, whether he's the guy coming on a backfield wham on the inside zone, or just getting out into space. And Sims too, Sims, Sims has been really active as a blocker as well. I know he had just the one like check down catch today, but I mean he made the most of it, and he had a really nice block on Jones's one reception to kind of help spring Jones for the first down. So, um, great to see from your young tight ends. I, like I said, this one wasn't one of those games where it's like they're looking to go after some bad tight or bad linebackers or anything like that. So it was just good to see that they threw 7 passes to tight ends and all 7 of them were caught for positive yardage. So good game from the tight end room and the O line. We talked about it in our preview show that the biggest thing, Love wasn't great in the week 8 game, but the biggest disappointment in that game against the Vikings at Lambeau was that this O-line played like ass in the week 8 game. And they absolutely took this Minnesota front behind the woodshed tonight and basically just got whatever they wanted out of them. I know that there were a couple pressures here and there, but I mean, you don't get Aaron Jones to pop for 6 yards a carry by not, just taking what you want from an opponent. And Love, like I said, he had broke some pass rush contains and stuff like that a couple times, but for the most part, he was able to do what he wanted to and pick apart the Vikings secondary because his O line was playing well for most of the night. So, absolute shout out to those guys. Hope Myers is okay. I don't think I've seen anything yet regarding his status, but um, hope that he's doing well for next week because that would be one of the worst things is to have to shuffle the O line ahead of, like you said, a do or die
Yeah, but they
game at home
put
next week.
they put Runyon in at center and moved Ryan to right guard, and I think if they're gonna do if they're gonna shuffle, that's the way they're gonna do it. And
And the good thing is that they have practiced that before. It's not like they're bringing someone totally random into the situation. So we'll see what happens. It sounded like it wasn't the worst thing for Myers, but obviously we'll wait and see on that. So hopefully he has a clean bill of health. Bill of
and
health, and
you don't know how much of a heart attack I was having when I saw number 70 run out onto the field. And
and
then I looked at
that
the
I did.
time and I was like, wait, okay,
Oh
that
yeah,
makes
it
sense.
makes sense.
They're
Yeah,
they're pulling starters. Okay, that's
yeah,
great.
yeah. No point, no point for Elton to be in the game at that point. So yeah, so no, I totally agree. It's like, oh no, oh god, why? I don't I looked away before the Clifford drive, and when I looked up, because I was like, okay, Clifford's in the game, whatever, and I looked up and I saw the mullet, I was like, oh dear god, why? So but like you said, it was obviously burn the clock time, so it was an acceptable
I have to
acceptable
say,
compromise at that point.
to kind of s- veer away from just being Packers for a minute, have you noticed that these games seem to be like blowing by quicker?
They have. They really have. Yeah.
And
I don't have an explanation for, like the college game where they change the time stoppages and stuff like that. I Yeah, I have no idea what's going on. That
when
it
I'm not
does make
saying
it seem
it's
like, yeah.
well, and I'm not saying it's bad or anything. It just
Oh no, no,
it
yeah.
seems like
Yeah.
it seems like they're blowing through quicker because it was like, okay, well, I look down to send a tweet out about so and so's touchdown, and I look up, and now it's only like 2 minutes left in the first half.
Right. Yeah.
So
So
it just and I
maybe it's just
know
because we're Big Ten fans and we're used to Fox doing all their stupid commercial shenanigans with
I know shit.
uh uh their score commercial break, kickoff commercial break, and looky there, it's
Well,
the
and I
end of the
even
quarter
noticed
commercial break. So yeah, I don't.
right, and I noticed what was it last week was a noon game
Yeah.
that normally. Because see, I would always have to before when I worked on Sundays, I would also always have to time that out where I could leave at a certain time so I could get to work. Well, this past Sunday I was and obviously I don't work Sundays anymore, but I was looking at the clock and the game got done before 3. And I'm like, well, I would have had like 20 minutes before I had to leave now. And that wasn't normal. Normally, it was, okay, well, 3:15, you knew the game was gonna be completely over, unless it went to overtime or something.
Yeah. I don't know if it's
And
because they're maybe and I haven't really kept track of it, but I do feel like the NFL has gone to more of those. It's not a full-on commercial break, but they kind of like, they do the pick. They shrink the frame of the game, and then they're
the
playing
picture in
like a
picture.
commercial brand. Yeah, it's like the commercial band is on the bottom or something like that. So I don't know if that's shortening the full. Is It's kind of like how in the NBA they're like they have 20-second timeouts and they have full timeouts kind of thing. And it's like, well, I've timed the 20-second timeout and we've been gone for 40 seconds kind of thing and stuff like that. So, it's that whole like 10 seconds here, 20 seconds there. It does make a difference. So, yeah, I don't really have a good explanation, but I do agree that it does feel like games are a lot more fluid this season as a whole. And we're not seeing the like 3.5 to 4 hour slogs like we're kind of used to, especially this point in the season where like weather, all those kind of things start to play a factor as well and stuff. So yeah, I I'm happy. I'm pleased with it. Yeah, it's like you said, it's not a
Yeah,
complaint
there's
or
no
anything.
issues.
It's
No.
more just an observation than anything else. So
It
yeah,
just like I said, it's weird because I've never really dealt with games being done by, like if it was a noon game being done by 3, because it was like I was always sweated and was like, "Don't go to overtime. Don't go overtime. Don't go," 'cause
yeah.
I'd have to, at minimum, leave the house at like 3:15, and so, yeah, but anyway, I know I derailed it for a minute, but it's weird that it just seems like these games are getting shorter.
Well, good reason that the game was getting shorter is there was less opportunities for Joe Barry to screw the pooch
Yeah,
tonight.
no
But
kidding.
uh, I guess the combination of Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins were bad enough to make Barry have some Dutch courage and call a little bit more aggressive game tonight out of his defense. So, yeah, I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to make much of anything. It's hard to say how good the defense really played since, like I said, Hall and Mullins are. I don't even know if they're quad A, they're quadruple A quarterbacks. They might just be triple A quarterbacks, honestly. But
I have to give Mullins credit because they showed the graphic during the game that like the last two games he played, even though he was turning the ball over, he
oh
was still
yeah,
throwing for like 300 and a half, 330 yards, 340 yards.
yeah,
So when they put him in, I was a little bit worried because it's like, okay, now they got a guy that's just going to keep throwing it to,
Jefferson,
Jefferson
yeah.
and Atkins or Addison, and we were going to be in trouble. But yeah, they schemed it up well. They didn't miss Jair too badly, which it is what it is. I don't wish Jair to not be on the team. I would rather see an all-pro cornerback back on the team. Uh, but yeah, and good on Corey Ballantyne for remembering his tip drill and getting that interception.
His
And
first career interception, so good for him. Good,
yeah,
like we said we don't know how good or necessary, or if he's just terrible or anything, but we appreciate how hard he plays. He does use every ounce of, he's a 9 something athlete by RAS, so he uses every ounce of that to to manage his way around the field, and you do see it play up at times when he has to
and
recover on
some
plays.
guys it takes a little bit longer
Yeah,
to
because he
get
came
into
from a
it.
small school, so
Yeah.
it makes sense. Yeah, but good. I'm really happy for him that at the end of the day he has an NFL interception under his belt. And I do think that he has some kind of future in Green Bay moving forward. Whether they've kept him around the last year and a half because they do like him as a special teams contributor, and he has shown that he can cover when pressed into duty. So yeah, and like going back to the Jair thing and stuff, the part that just irritates me about that is like, oh, his attitude, blah blah. And I'm like, you guys
Well,
do
now
realize that
everybody
if
wants to trade him.
yeah,
Everybody wants to trade him now.
because he's a bad whatever, right? Whatever reason and stuff. I'm like, you guys do realize that Carrington is the same kind of guy, and you love him right now. You guys literally love him because he's a dirt cheap 7th round rookie, and we're paying Jair, whatever it is, 7 or 8, 9 figures on his contract or whatever it is, right? So I'm like, the moment that Carrington signs his extension, he goes in the, oh, he's weird, he's a jerk, he talks too highly of himself. I'm like, you do realize that there's a certain you to be good at certain positions just to be in the NFL, you need like 1 or 2 screws loose. To be really good at certain positions, you got to have almost all them screws loose in your head. So
Well, and what have
yeah,
we've talked about all year? Everybody keeps complaining that we don't have enough people who are,
we'll run
smash
through
mouth.
that brick wall and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
but then as soon as they get him on the team, they don't want him anymore.
yeah,
Jair from day one has been Jair. Yeah, he's
yeah,
got a little bit more showy eccentric, but he's
yeah,
always been eccentric.
yeah.
Carrington is eccentric.
He's the same
Uh,
guy. Like, yeah,
right.
like you said,
Um,
that's the thing with Jair is it's not like he only got that way after he got paid or anything. Like he's been that guy since the day he walked into Green Bay, kind of thing. So, like, that's the part that, like I said, I'll get off the soapbox now. But I'm like, you guys that is all these fans that are throwing shit at Jair and but talking up Carrington. I'm like, they're the same dude. They just have different names and they're, what are they? They're like 4 years apart or whatever in terms
something
of
like
age.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, get over it. Like just shut
I
up
think
already.
Jair's 27. I can't think of how old
Yeah,
Carrington is. Maybe
maybe
21.
5 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
22, I think. Yeah. But like you said, I'll throw this out there, and I know that some people are going to be like, I can't believe you said that, but Justin
Uh oh.
Jefferson, he's good, but he's no Devontae Adams. He's not making Aiden O'Connell look good in the NFL.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, like like um, and I mean this, and no, Jefferson is awesome, and like Packers fans don't need any stretch of the imagination to recognize that he is great and all, but it is funny that our no-name corners kind of took him out of his game today. And I know that they had
Well,
seen him open stuff like,
how pissed do you think he is after seeing like DJ Chark
oh
and
yeah,
Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and all these just burn the hell out of the Packers defense, and then he comes in and what do you got wrote down here? He's under 60
59.
yards.
Yeah.
Yeah. How pissed do you think he has to be?
And like I said, part of that is his quarterbacks tonight are worse than the quarterbacks that got their best game of the season against the Packers the last
Are they
few weeks.
though?
I
I
think so.
mean,
I think so.
the last week Packers played Bryce Young, and we were talking about how he had never went over 300 yards, and
Yeah.
he hadn't thrown a touchdown in a month, and at least Mullins has the stats to go with it.
Yeah. So, uh, I try not to lose too much sleep over that because, uh, whatever. Some people I've seen the tweets already. Do you think Barry's still fired? I'm like, yeah. Like, let's not let a second dead cat bounce happen 2 years in a row. It's like what Westendorf said on Pick Six a few weeks ago. The Packers, since they won the Super Bowl with Rodgers in Super Bowl 45, they have this bad habit of being fine with being just good enough at too many portions of the team. And the thing with Barry is he ain't even just good enough. So I don't care
No.
what his defense does here on out. Your sample size is too much weighed in the he sucks as opposed to, oh, his defense happened to play well against these certain situations kind of thing. So yeah.
And I've said for the longest time, if there was any way you could like demote him to like linebackers coach, I'd do it every day of the week. Because
Yeah.
I know he's a solid positional group guy. He just can't call a defense to save his life. So
I think that's like you because you hear the stuff that like Dre was saying his first season in Green Bay where he's like, oh man, like the stuff that Barry has done, blah blah blah. And then you kind of look 2 years down the road and he's like, I can't speak to what the fuck is going on, kind of thing, and stuff like that. And
yeah.
yeah, it's like you said, the positional stuff alone, it seems like he's a whiz kid at or a whiz dude at because he's older. But yeah, the putting together a scheme and a game plan, it's just like
Well,
it's a
even
foreign language for him.
even Preston said when they hired him that he was stoked about it because he had some of his best,
Yeah.
his best years under a Joe Barry scheme because Barry was a linebacker whisperer. But I know that's not possible. Well, it is possible, but it's not plausible that he's going to take a demotion. I really do think, unless, okay, here is my thought. And it scares the living daylights out of me, but here is my thought. And this is another reason why I am not too keen on the Packers making the playoffs this season. Is I think any prolonged run saves Joe Barry. And the only thing that'll happen is they'll keep Joe Barry, but they'll get rid of a couple of the positional guys, like a Jerry Montgomery or whatever. So that's the other reason why I've been leery on this whole, well, we got to make the playoffs. We got to make the playoffs. That's great. But let's say we make the playoffs and we're playing Detroit in the first round. They beat Detroit. That just bumped the probability of Barry getting fired. Instead of at 90%, we're looking at 75% chance.
Yeah.
So but my only hope is if they do get rid of him, which right now it looks like it's a thing, is they keep like Greg Williams. Because what Greg Williams has done with these, quote unquote no-name corners has been amazing. I think he's done a really great job with Corey. I think he's done a really great job with Carrington. You're kind of seeing it with Jonathan Owens. How many of us wanted it?
Johnson and Johnson Jr.
And
Yep.
Johnson Jr. Benny Sapp. It looks like Benny Sapp got a little bit of play time there for a bit. So I really do wish that they hold on to him because although the stats don't reflect it, you're a DVOA guy, you know it just as well as I do. The Packers' pass defense has been like top 10.
Yeah.
So hopefully, if and when they do cut ties with Barry, they'll at least hold on to uh uh Greg Williams and not the
Rebrovich
bounty
is the
kid.
other Rebrovich is
Yeah.
the other guy I kind of hope they hold on to too, because the stuff he's done with both of our edge room dudes kind of getting Preston back on track after a rough 2020 and 2021. I like what Rebrovich has done with that edge room, so that's the other guy that I would kind of hope would be kept around and stuff. But um, sticking on the edge room, I thought that was a big key, and obviously part of that is the whole like how much of that is on the two crappy quarterbacks and how much of it is real. But I mean, Preston Smith was stealing Christian Darisaw's lunch money throughout the first half of this game. The first drive, he gets a pretty clean win and gets a pressure on Jaron Hall, and then obviously he makes the huge play with the strip sack going into halftime. Looks like Preston escaped any kind of serious injury. It looks like he just rolled his ankle because they kind of just taped it up and got him back out there.
Well, it
But
was pretty
no,
heavy tape, so it's going to be
yeah,
some
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of sprain.
yeah. So hoping that it's a bad, if anything, it's a bad low and not any kind of a high ankle. But it was good that whatever they taped and gave him tonight seemed to keep him effective enough to close out the game and stuff. But it was good to see him have a good game. I know, and selfishly, I'm hoping that Rashawn can get his last sack, but Minnesota was throwing anyone with a good shoulder to help chip him. I think I saw several plays where he was getting double chipped by a tight end and a running back coming out of the backfield. And
Well, I keep
uh,
saying it. I'm going to pound the table for it. I want to see it at least one time, and they haven't done it yet. Now that they're putting Lucas's hand in the dirt, line those two up on the same side.
yep,
Have Preston or Enigbare or whoever on the other side, but line up Rashawn and Lucas on the same side. One of
yep.
them in the hand in the dirt, the other standing up. I think they're going to kill somebody. I mean, I hate to sound like that, but they're definitely going to hurt somebody, and it's
Honestly, this
it.
might be the week to do it because you're we'll talk about it in the preview, but you're facing Fields and um you need as much athleticism out there to kind of match his athleticism in the pocket and stuff. So we'll see what happens this week. But I thought Quay looked as healthy as he has for a while.
I think he
I was
got nicked himself once
yeah,
or twice.
his shoulder. I thought I was a little worried on one of those ones down when Minnesota was kind of towards the red zone. I think it was the drive coming out of halftime where you kind of saw him grab at his shoulder a little bit, but then of course he like played the rest of the game, had his big sack and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it is definitely something to keep an eye on, and just a bummer situation for Isaiah McDuffie tonight. You really hope that he's okay. I kind of get the feel, that was a bad concussion that he suffered tonight. When they showed him getting carted off the sideline, he didn't know who he was or where he was at the moment, kind of thing. So I just hope
Well,
that
that's
he's
weird because
okay.
to me it sounded like he at least had some recognition because he was able to, he was communicating with the trainer that he was riding with. So
Yeah.
I thought that was at least a positive sign.
Yeah. I didn't have my volume up, so I don't know if they, which feed they were giving you when they showed him, but the way he kind of looked glazed over, and I couldn't hear what they were saying. So I could it looked like he was kind of just dazed and confused on there. So hopefully,
I-
it's
In a
not as bad as
weird
it looked to
way,
me.
I'm glad it's just a concussion because the way all three of their heads kind of collided and the
Yeah.
way he was just laying there, I thought
I thought the
the
cart was
worst.
gonna come out for him on the field, not like they
Yeah.
walk him over to the sideline kind of thing. So yeah, no, definitely agree with you there. So but yeah, it was like I said, we'll see what they do against the Bears next week. The Bears are playing with some confidence. They've won 5 of 7 or whatever.
And
There's
Justin
talk again.
Fields is the real deal.
Yeah, we'll see what they do against a hot offense again. They didn't really do well against the last couple they faced, so that's another stepping stone for the defense. But going into the last phase of the game, kind of a weird special teams night, honestly. Um, Overall, Anders was good. I don't. Yeah, we were kind of going back and forth in the notes. I'm not really sure what happened on his missed PAT. I think he just hit the ball because the snap was right down the middle. Whelan got it down in plenty of time. I just think the ball when he kicked it, it started out spinning vertical, but then once it went over the line of scrimmage, you saw it start to go like a saucer, and it just took off to the left and stuff. So I
Unless
think it's just
somebody
a
unless it tipped, and I
that
don't
would be
know,
the
nobody
only
said
thing, but
anything.
and it didn't. I wouldn't figure it would get that much height on the kick, because he kicked it like not very far below the flag. Where the flag would kind of drape if it was an outdoor field goal post. So, um, but yeah, I the main thing out of that is he mishit that one, whatever happened to that one, and then he didn't miss a kick the rest of the night. So that's
Yep.
the thing that we've been kind of pointing at this whole season, is that it's misses are gonna happen. Justin Tucker misses kicks. The main thing for a guy like Anders is he can't spiral, and that was the thing we were worried about all preseason, because that's what it looked like was his problem in the games, whether it was mental or mechanical, that he would miss one and then he would miss the next three, kind of thing, no matter what the situation was. But he came out and just banged through the rest of his kicks on the night. So, like we said, that's the most encouraging thing we've seen from him all season. And like you said in the notes, better day than Mason Crosby.
Yeah,
Crosby
he
had a
had a better.
chance to Crosby had the chance to really help the Packers out, but and and obviously we're bagging on Mason a little bit to prove the point that they made the right choice to move on. Whether it was Anders or another kicker, it was time. But I can't. I tweeted it. That's not fully on Mason. That's on Joe. What's his? I can't think of the coach's name. Not Joe
Bryant.
Douglas.
Well,
Yeah. Dable. Thank you. That's on Dable for being okay with a mid 50-yard field goal instead of he had all the
yeah, but it
momentum.
wasn't just the field goal that he missed. He missed like a PAT or two PATs or something like that, and so that wasn't the only thing he missed today.
Got it. I only saw the end of the game, so I don't know what happened. I wasn't aware of what had happened leading up to that point. So, yep, not a good day then for Old Mason. But Whelan was good. 2 punts. I think he averaged like just under 50 for the day. No real return. What's it? Yeah, so his second punt wasn't that great. So he had 2 punts for 99 yards, so 154 and 145 yarder. The second one, honestly, that was a nice play by Rudy Ford to kind of snag the returner, because the ball kind of pinged up and Rochelle didn't see where it bounced. And so the Viking returner thought he had a lane, and Ford was Johnny on the spot to bring him down for, I think it was just 4 yards, where it could have potentially been kind of a danger situation for the punt coverage team. So good night from Ford, back, in his familiar gunner spot. And then really in coverage, I thought they were good. The only one was that kick return coming out of the half, where I'm not really sure what happened on that kick return. I thought the Packers were decently positioned on that one, and it looked like it was one of those where you kind of missed the first tackle, and then after you miss the first tackle, it's just sort of like, oh shit, and stuff. But it looks, they mostly averted disaster on that one. And then the black eye on the night, because it's on multiple people on multiple levels, but it's Samori Toure fumbling that punt when he goes back for the punt after Reed is out of the game. And so it's twofold. It's one, Samori Toure just played himself off the roster tonight. Just another, he hasn't been active consistently for the whole season. And then tonight, like when opportunity strikes, because Wicks and Watson are both inactive, you can't get snaps over the practice squad call up guy who's now out of practice squad call ups. And you go in and you muff a punt, and then you catch a negative yard pass and go out of bounds at the end of the game, when instead he should have just either turtled the ball or not caught it at that point. So just again, it's, like you said, he's, to me, he's the same boat as Patrick Taylor, where he's just the guy. I honestly was shocked he made the roster this season. I think that was sort of a like trying to make sure they had someone who, especially because Watson and Dobbs were both dealing with injury to open the season. I get the feeling that that was a moment of like, well, we need some guys who were here last year kind of thing.
Well, not
Um,
just that, but it's kind of like I mentioned with the Dobbs and Watson thing. Who was Jordan throwing to on
right.
scout team more often? Watson, Dobbs, and Torrey. So it just makes sense to have another guy that Jordan has a little bit of a repertoire with to play. And he had shown some flashes last year, nothing major, but you had hoped that he would kind of carry it over. But after this was one of the dumbest mistakes I've seen in a long time.
I
I
know.
I don't know how he doesn't call fair catch on that. And I want to step aside for a minute and really, what the hell is going on with these refs this year? I know we have that major blown thing last night that people are talking about against
Detroit and
the
Dallas.
Detroit
Yeah.
and Dallas game where, well, this one said he was eligible, but this one didn't, and blah 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 and whatever. But you have the one the the punt where Reed calls the fair catch, it gets hit. They originally call it a penalty, and then they take it back, and then you got the rules analyst on NBC blast him like, no, that by rule is a penalty.
Well, and
So
then the thing on top of that is like Macaulay's right that it doesn't matter how late the call is, like you're not supposed to hit him. But the other part, and I forget who I retweeted it, but the thing that is that it doesn't matter that he called for fair catch because the guy hit him before he caught the ball anyway. So
yeah,
it's
you
like
got to have the 2 yard. Yeah,
yeah. So it's like it's really a moot point because it's still it's not fair catch interference. It's kick catch interference. And people are like, "What's the difference?" It's like, well, you got to allow the guy to catch the ball, kind of thing. So
and
and
to
it's not.
give Toure a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, that guy was awful close to him too when he before he made
Yeah,
the catch attempt.
yeah. So Uh, yeah, I don't, and that's the one I'm always so confused because they keep saying that they don't have the halo rule as they used to call it anymore, but you're still supposed to give the guy yards, like a certain amount of space. But you're right,
It's like
he
two
did look like he
yards.
was, yeah, he did look it was close, but just catch the damn ball, Toure. Like, yeah,
Right,
yeah,
and I'm not giving him a full pass. I'm just giving
yeah,
him a little bit of the
yeah.
where the guy was
Because he
awful damn
definitely
close.
took his eye off of it. Like you said,
Yeah,
he definitely took that peek, but he took it too late. I think he was looking. I think he took the peek, looked up, and then I think he saw purple in front of him and was like, "Wait a minute, what?" And then when he did
yeah.
that, ball goes off his chest, and it's a turnover kind of thing. So
But
yeah,
it just the refs this year have been really weird, and I don't know what the angle is or what's going on with that, but it's just been really odd with that stuff.
yeah, and it feels
So
like it's been building I feel like the start of the season, it was your usual, like, overemphasizing the points of emphasis, the shit they do every year kinda thing, but I feel like it's like you said, the weirdness to it is it almost feels like there's this undercurrent of, "Yeah, hold my beer from the refs" kinda thing this season because
well, and
it
well,
yeah,
I saw earlier with the Kansas City game where friggin' Chris Jones was lined up off sides and they didn't call it. It's like, guys, you literally blew the flag or threw the flag on Kadarius Toney, and he was further onside than what friggin' Chris Jones was today. And it's like, come on, guys. I I
yeah,
don't know
and
how you can fix it,
I
but
I
something's got to be fixed.
Yeah. Well, and I forget, I think it was Justice Mosqueda. He tweeted like, or someone was tweeting about like, oh, what do you do about it? And I basically said, until the NFL integrates the refs, like they pull in the refs union and make referees full-time employees of the NFL, nothing is going to change because what by the NFL doing nothing, the NFL is saying it's cool. Like we know you're gonna watch. We know we're fine with it. We're fine with the human element. Blah blah blah. All that kind of shit. Honestly, to me, that's another strike on the players' union for being stupid and weak. Because The players are the guys that are being directly impacted by poor refereeing. It's your team that gets screwed by the refs or gets helped by the refs or whatever way you want to look at it. And so it's like by and what do I say every time? Every time the players union has an opportunity to really lean into something that matters at the negotiating table, whatever ammunition they have, they always waste it on something stupid like limiting practice or smoking weed whenever the fuck we want to. And it's like, and okay, like you and I, we've both been like, okay, Aaron, we've had enough of your shenanigans and all of that and stuff. The one thing that I do give Aaron credit for is he really tried to get in because he was the Packers union rep for
Yeah.
I think it was like 3 or 4 years, and he really tried to talk to the other teams, the other players, and be like, hey, like you guys are only looking at a small part of the big picture. These are the things we need. But they were like, no, we got to be able to smoke weed, man. And Aaron was like, fuck this shit. I don't need to be a part
That's
of this since
that's
no
the
one's going to
sad
listen kind
thing
of thing.
about having
Yeah.
such young people try to do things because they're looking short term more than they are at long
Yeah.
term stuff, and it sucks. But I just know something's got to give
Yeah.
with these refs. I know
Eh,
that the NFL did the right thing. That the crew from last night's game between Detroit and Dallas cannot work a playoff game this year. So, you know, and that's an obvious thing. You can't have that where it's that blatant that you screwed up.
the the question I have is not for you necessarily, but the question I would have for the NFL is, would they make that call if it was if they were not the same crew from the Kansas City Green Bay game? Because I get the feeling it was as much like that shit that happened in last night's game, but it was also the fact that these are the same dudes that fucked up the end of the Green Bay Kansas City game a few weeks ago, kind of thing. And so
Well, and they've
it's
had a lot of
yeah,
bad games this year, but it could be. But I think that was just so blatant
yeah,
that I think any crew that would have done it would have had some kind of punishment.
yeah.
Whether it was as severe as not doing any of the playoff games, I don't know. But that was pretty damn blatant where you had the guy literally on camera telling the ref that he was reporting for eligible. You have it on film that Jared Goff was telling Decker to go over there and report as eligible. You had Dan Campbell stating that before the game, we told them that at some point Taylor Decker was going to report as eligible, and then they screw it all up.
Yeah.
So I
And
just think with that egregious of a thing, no matter what crew it was, I think you could even have had Ed Hockley out there, and if he would have screwed that up, they would have told Guns to pack his shit.
well, and that's the thing is that the whole you don't get to do a playoff game, that's basically it in terms of what the NFL can really do in terms of quote unquote punishing refs because of like I said, they're third party for all intents and purposes. They're not full-time employees of the NFL. They're
They're
basically
independent
outsourced. Yeah, they're
contractors.
independent contractors exactly. So and like I said, until the NFL makes that change to bring the refs as in-house employees, they don't care. Like they're totally fine. It's the all news is good news, controversy sells, all that kind of crap. Like the NFL is just like, we're still the biggest dogs in the American market. You're gonna watch us no matter what, because if you're shit talking our referees, that means you're still watching and stuff. So yeah, it is what it is. But um as far as getting back to the Packers go, like we said, destiny is in their hands for the 23 season. Joe, MVP for the night. Who you got?
I'm gonna go with Bill Melton just because of how, like I said, he came from basically out of nowhere,
From
and he just
Rutgers.
Rutgers, yeah, and had probably the best game out of any of receiver we had all season. That and I'm not exaggerating too much on that because 100-yard game, one touchdown. He had what, one drop and one
Yeah.
that was overshot. So, you know, you can't ask for anything. you I tweeted this out that he kind of reminded me of another guy that wore number 80 with the way he was kind of playing tonight, that he kind of had a little bit of that Donald Driver to him where,
He's
he
a
was
thicker
fighting.
guy. Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
thicker receiver than you'd think. So,
and he was fighting for yards, he was making the catches, there was one, what was it? Was it on his touchdown where he like ran cut in, and just the way he moved it, I had flashbacks of Donald
oh
Driver.
no, that was Reed's. That was Reed's second touchdown where he avoided two guys, ran halfway across the field, and then like kind of almost carried a guy into the end zone at the end. That was
No,
Reed's
the
one.
Bill
The-
Melton had one where he was on the left side and cut across in front of two
Oh yeah, yeah,
guys
yeah. That was the
into the end zone.
that was the arm punt one, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, his touchdown he kind of just broke free late, kind of thing. But yeah, no, yeah, he had some nice ones where like you said, there was an element of excuse me of like Driver kind of working in the middle of the field, and um I know it's a different era and stuff where there's a lot more rules that protect receivers, but it was nice to see, yeah, like you said, unlike the last guy who wore 80 for the Packers, it was nice to see a sure-handed and
Yeah.
effective middle of the field player for the Packers this time around. So, no, like you said, great game from Melton tonight. It's honestly kind of fitting that the first Packers 100-yard receiver is a dude that's not even on the 53-man roster. He's a practice squad call-up in his last practice squad. The third of his game day elevation. So kind of fitting for this squad that's the guy who breaks the 100-yard receiving barrier. And I'm gonna go with Jordan Love. And like I said, he probably left a few yards out there. Excuse me. He left a few yards out there. Wish he would have made a slightly better throw on the opening drive, where he just overshot Melton going into the end zone, or the second drive. Sorry, the field goal drive, and then could have made the throw on fourth down a little bit easier for Melton. But like we said, at the end of the day, was just excuse me, just under 73% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks today. Had the rushing touchdown. Um, just looked like he was completely in control today. Yeah, started off a little bit hyped up, oversailed a couple throws on the first drive, but overall, it was a really good game to see from Love tonight. Least valuable, who you got for tonight?
The only one that I can think of off the top of my head is just Torre. That play, those two plays, just it. Yeah, I hate to say it because I was kind of hyped for him when they drafted him because I thought he was going to be not like a superstar by no means, but at least a reliable player, and he's shown that he can't be reliable. So that's who I got to go with.
My LVP is going to be Andrew Booth Jr. And if you are confused as to who that is, look up number
I've never
23 on the
seen.
Vikings.
Oh, I've never seen
I,
Aaron
I
Jones that pissed.
I don't even know who the hell he was trying to fight, because when Jones went with the throw his ass out the club move, he was yelling at guys in sweaters and stuff. So I'm not exactly sure who he was getting after the game, but so be it. Um, like we said, great to see Aaron Jones. There's the picture of him holding up the L in the face of Patrick Jones, the Vikings edge rusher. But a weird post game.
Like I said, I've never seen Aaron Jones that pissed. And
Yeah,
Aaron is one of those nice, humble type guys that
yeah. I know some people were kind of worried, like, oh, like, are there going to be ramifications? But I was like, I don't think Jones. If Jones gets a fine, even the Packers should pay his fine, because that would be a really ass
right.
backwards fine kind of thing. It's
He
not
didn't
like
throw a punch. He didn't do it. He shoved the
he
guy. He grabbed the
he was
guy.
just
But yeah,
de-escalating it. Yeah. So yeah. So, and I didn't see anyone. If anyone on the Packers gets in trouble, it's whoever was wearing the hoodie that Booth was yelling at.
had to be a
And
practice squad guy. And I'd
yeah,
have to
and
look through the pictures to see if I could figure it out who it is.
yeah. So So be it. I don't think much of any of
Oh,
that, but
and we're gonna take a break. It is officially 12 o'clock, so happy New Year to
Happy
everybody.
New Year. Happy New Year, Joe. Well, Happy New Year for you, I should say. I've still got some time.
I'm surprised there's not fireworks going off in my neighborhood right now because that's
No,
happened the
your
last like
mic
half.
setup is just really good. Nah, I'm kidding. But no, we wanted to say Happy New Year to all of you for following along and listening to us. And Joe, excuse me, if you want to plug the giveaway right now, just to make sure I don't go too fast and miss it.
Well, we just it's basically, we just started it yesterday in an attempt to get more people to follow the Ohana Packers Twitter account, get some more listeners in, get some more people going with it, get us spread around. So we're doing a two-tier giveaway. At 230 followers, we're gonna give away a signed John Kuhn 8x10. And at 523, we're going to give away a signed Jair Alexander 8x10. So as soon as we hit those marks, we will do a giveaway. We'll put all our followers into a random generator. We'll generate it up. Whatever name pops up, you're the winner. We'll DM you whatever we got to do to get your information and get it sent to you. Uh, for those who know this stuff, the John Kuhn 8x10 will have a Waukesha sports card COA with it, so that one's legit. And the Jair is one that was got in person by myself, so I can pretty much vouch for it. But no, just you must be following the Ohana Packers account, Ohana_Packers account. I
Not one
know
of
I've had
ours. Yeah.
right. I've had some people who I think have misunderstood it because I've been pushing it on my Twitter a little bit that they've started following me. Hey, I love the followers, whatever, but in order to win the photos or have a chance to win the photos, you must be following the Ohana Packers. And Michael will do all the, plug-in after we're done with this. But just like I said, for 230 followers, we're 74 followers away. So once we hit that, we'll give John Kuhn 8x10. And 523, we'll give away a Jair Alexander 8x10.
Yep. So that's going to do it. We close out 2023 with the Packers getting back to 500 with their playoff chances, excuse me, solely in their grasp. Oh, doing better than I'm doing right now.
I know
But
we're both sound like we're going to die, but my voice is almost shot.
what a way to send off 2023. But no, here we go. The Packers are marching into week 18, 2024 with their playoff chances, their playoff destiny solely in their hands. Like you said, Joe, it's going to be another home game against a division opponent. Hopefully this Packers team, LaFleur said it in the post-game presser that if they don't win next week Sunday, this week doesn't mean a damn. So that's the right mindset to have. And hopefully the team is
Oop,
going to
there's
bring
the
its A game.
firecrackers.
I'm doing it's pretty good on my end, or I should say I'm not hearing too much on my end, so don't worry too much. But that's gonna do it for us tonight before the really big stuff gets to Joe's side and really washes us out. Please give us a follow on our Twitter accounts. I'm at Kawano Mike. Joe is at Iowa_Joe86. The podcast, as Joe said, the one you gotta follow to be eligible for the drawing is at Ohana_Packers. The website is ohanapackers.org. Please go there for our blog posts and the streams of all of our episodes. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Please give us a like and a subscribe if you're enjoying what you're hearing. Please give us positive and negative feedback in the comments. We do appreciate anything that you guys give us. The Packers are 8-8 and looking to close out the 2023 season above 500. And like I said, they would be in the playoffs depending on what the Rams do next week. They possibly, I think, could still be the 6th seed, but at the very least, they would be in the playoffs if they beat the Bears in Lambeau in Week 18. So that's what we've got heading into 2024. Those of you that are already there, or I guess by the time you're listening to that, we'll all be there. But we like to say, go Pack, go! A happy New Year and aloha.